Hello, welcome to The Wandering Drew. I am Drew. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I've had a lot of technical difficulties in doing this video. It got deleted from my computer somehow. I've recorded it once or twice, and I'm having errors with either the sound or the video being recorded properly. So hopefully, I've switched equipment back to a reliable camera, hopefully, and this will be hopefully edited and posted up very, very shortly. I'm recording this video in February of 2023. It's the first video I've done where I'm recording voice and sound this year. That's not a result of me editing stuff from last year. So hope everyone had a great holiday and want to wish everyone a happy new year. This year looks to be pretty good for me, both personally, professionally, and hiking-wise. I've got a lot going on. There'll be some stuff coming on later, but today I'm going to really discuss a hike that I have upcoming. I had planned to do it already, but things conspired. It's been very, very hectic and busy, and it's getting pushed back to March. Before I do that, I just want to cover, for some of the people that watch consistently, I know I've talked about stuff I'm doing. Over the holidays, I did complete a 10K, and then actually 4 days later, I did a 5K. And I'm happy to report that I was able to jog, not run, but jog the whole length of that 10K. So I'm happy with that. Would have liked to have gone a little bit faster, but considering that I really had not trained toward the end, and I really haven't been training since I came back, I've been slacking off. I've just gotten back onto rucking or carrying a backpack with weight. I have a 50-pound backpack that I carry. I get some looks on me when I'm walking around with it outside on a little loop that I have outside in my neighborhood. But I've been trying to do that. I've also been doing some indoor training on a treadmill when the weather's bad, or so that I can also get some elevation because it's pretty flat around here. So that's it. So getting back to the hike that I'm doing. If you recall, if you watched the channel before, and I'm hoping to put a link up in this video. 2 years ago, I did a hike on the Oceans to Lake Trail, and the Oceans to Lake Trail is a portion of the Florida Trail, but it was quite swampy and marshy, and the reason why I call it, I used to call it the Swamp to Shore. My wife actually came up with that name, and it's appropriate because you go from Lake Okeechobee, ocean, to, Lake Okeechobee, so the lake to the ocean. So lakes to ocean. I called it the Swamp to Shore because you basically go from like in the Everglades and marshland, and then you end up at the beach on the Atlantic Ocean. So on that trip, I went with several other people. If you recall, or you watch that video, you'll see that I hiked with 4 other hikers. Stephen being the predominant one there, and Stephen is the one that really loves the Everglades and likes going out there in that type of environment. So he's actually the push for me doing this hike as well, because ever since that hike, he's always wanted to do a portion of the Florida Trail. And I'm going to get back to that. So being that we had such a good time on that hike, we've talked about doing this hike, but last year was just really a hard thing. There were a lot of closures, obviously with COVID. He got COVID once or twice, I believe, and we just weren't able to make it happen. So over the holidays, was talking with him, and we decided to set the date. And we set the date for mid-January. Unfortunately, I had a conflict at the last minute, a week prior to going with work that I could not get out of, and I had to reschedule it. So we planned on doing it at the end of January, 2 weeks later. There were a couple issues that week. However, I got sick myself that week, really sick, probably the worst I've been in about 20, 25 years. And I was just laid up. There was no way I could actually hike. Took several days off of work, and instead of hiking, I spent them in bed. So that unfortunately had to be canceled and rescheduled. So it looks like we're going to try for March now, and I'm hoping that the third time will be the charm for us to be able to get out and actually do our hike as planned. And the hike that we're doing is the southern portion of the Florida Trail. It's the southmost portion. It's called Big Cypress South. And it basically is from where the trail starts, the Florida Trail starts now, the southern terminus, as they say, which is at the Oasis Ranger Station, and you proceed north from there for about 30.3 miles or so, and we'll end up at I-75. And that's the first portion of the Florida Trail. It's also considered by some to be one of the most challenging portions, especially mile marker around 24 to 28 and a half, where there's a quite muddy portion. And that portion is well known for that section of mud that has been known to trap hikers and make them lose their trail runners or their boots even to the mud. So we'll see how that is. The trail has been quite wet this year, but being that there's not been a lot of rainfall recently, the trail is drying out. So the worry that I have is that it will be too dry when we go and we'll have trouble finding water. But right now, water is plentiful and the trail is navigable by getting wet, obviously, through a majority of the portion. Up a couple of weeks ago, it was listed as thigh high. I'm pretty sure it's gone down since then. I'm happy if it's ankle to calf. I don't really care as long as it's not above my waist. I'll be fine. So that's the trip that we're planning on doing. It's the 30.3 miles that goes the southern portion of the trail. And it starts at the Oasis Ranger Station, as I mentioned, and that's on a trail or a roadway called Tamiami Trail. It's a joining of where the trail goes. That road, even though it's called a trail, it's a road. It's a paved road that goes from Tampa to Miami. So they combined Tampa, Tam, and Miami and got Tamiami. So it's an old road. It was built probably close to 100 years ago, maybe 80 years ago, 70 years ago, maybe even through the Everglades, and it was paved. And but it's not a major roadway, but it is well traveled. But it's the furthest southern roadway that goes east to west along the Florida Peninsula. If you go a little further north, you end up at I-75, which is an interstate, major roadway, several lanes, high speed going in each direction. And that is where we will end up. So we will basically go from Tamiami Trail to I-75. I-75 is also known as the Sawgrass Expressway. So that's the plan. We'll probably do close to 10 miles per day. On day 2, the goal is to get as far north as you can and close to that mud before you camp, because you want to jump off early, in my mind, and get through that because it slows you down a lot. There are cautions and warnings for people. Make sure you have enough time to get through there before you lose daylight, and obviously water as well, because water is a problem there. So you want to make sure that you have yourself situated very well so that you can get off of the trail and go north and make it through there before you lose daylight. And then at the I-75 parking lot, there's a little parking lot on a rest stop there where we hope to get picked up and brought back to civilization. We will get a hot shower and clean clothes and hot food. So that's the plan that we're going to do. Hopefully we'll get dropped off on an early morning on the weekend, maybe a Friday, maybe a Saturday. We're not sure quite yet. And we'll start hiking from there, and we'll end 3 days later at I-75. On this trip going will be Stephen, of course, as I mentioned, and myself, and Matthew will be joining us from that trip as well. Unfortunately, AJ and Joe will not be making the trip this time. They were unable to get away from work and other commitments to join us for this trip. So it'll just be the 3 of us. So we'll see how this works out now. I hope to have the hike done when I made the video, presented it. It would have already been completed, but it didn't work out that way. So that's it for this discussion on what I'm doing. That's the plan. Like I said, I've done this video a couple of times. It keeps getting shorter and shorter as I cut stuff out and I get better at it. So not going to really talk very much about the trip. It's pretty simple. You start at the Oasis Ranger Station. You drop a permit in. It's free. There's no cost associated with this. You just have to fill out so you know that you're out on the trail and how many people use it for probably for funding and stuff. They want to know how many people are using the trail. You drop your permit in and you start hiking north. And hopefully 3 days later, we'll end up at I-75 and get a ride. Other than that, not a lot of planning on this one, kind of loose. I will be using an app. I'll be using what used to be known as Guthook, or Far Out now, to navigate. The plan is really just to go make campsites. That's really what you need it for. The trail is not very well marked in a lot of places, especially when you're going through the marsh. But obviously when you're on trails or land, you'll be able to follow the portion of the trail that everyone goes. So there's a loose trail that you follow, especially through some of the marsh, and there are signs and markings every once in a while, but it's not as well marked as some of the other trails that you go on. But as long as you're moving in the general direction, the correct path, and you follow the signs and markings that there are, you can easily navigate your way through here. So I'm not really worried about losing my way, but obviously having a GPS to put you back on track is a preferred tool that you would want to use. A paper map, unless you're really good with a compass, is not going to be probably quite as useful as the GPS will be. So the good thing about a map is that it doesn't require batteries, but I'm not worried about that. Like I said, it's only a 3-day trip, so I think the trail will be marked well enough for us to follow it, as it has been in the past when we did the ocean to lake, and the GPS will just verify where we're at, and we'll be able to plan our stops at various campsites along the way. No reservation or permit is needed for the campsites as well, so if you want to, you can just get out there and start doing this hike. Many people will do a day hike. They won't do this as a weekend or an overnighter. They'll just do the area around the Oasis Center and come back. I think once we get away from there, we won't see as many people, but it will be a weekend, so hopefully we'll run into some other hikers as well. So that's it, all I've got. Next time I'm going to do a video on my gear. I'll presenting my gear. I have some changes to my kit that I am going to carry, especially for this one because it's unique to the area, being the hot weather and the humidity. Sun is an issue. You definitely need a hat. You need to cover up, and sunscreen as well. Water being the other important thing. Other than that, just a handful of changes I'll be making to my gear that I carry. So once again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. Hope you enjoy this video. If you do, please leave a comment below. Consider giving it a thumbs up or a like, and consider subscribing to the channel. As always, thank you for taking time out of your day to watch the videos. I appreciate your support and your continued comments. And as always, take care till we meet again. That goes from Tamiami. I'm sorry, it goes from, that was good.